I wanted to take you through the headline to the actual story. You can see it on Pari. There are 56 pictures, brilliantly shot underwater, where our photographer went with the women with a very primitive GoPro number 1. Now it's GoPro 14 or 15. Now these women dive into that water. They pick, what does that seaweed do that they collect in Ramanathapuram? What does the seaweed do? It goes into the making of medicines and pharmaceuticals on a very large scale. Now the big pharmaceutical companies, the big drug companies, make millions and millions of dollars from that seaweed she collects, for which she gets a few rupees, couple of hundred rupees per kilogram, if she is lucky. But at the global level, and not even at the national India level, the pharmaceutical corporations make millions. Now that seaweed is used in drugs, prescription drugs, in medicines. Incidentally, it's also used in cooking materials like jelly. It goes into the making of jelly. So here is a gigantic contribution at some risk by poor women in Ramanathapuram, Tamil Nadu. What do they get in return for it? Now these women, we consider them experts. Pari's attitude is to treat them as experts. They will tell you about the seaweed is getting less. The work is getting harder. The seas are getting rougher. Yeah. And it's telling on their bodies, it's telling on their produce. Then what they try doing, they get onto a boat, they have a boat, and take it out, go out to the nearby islands, where they will be arrested by the forest department. Yeah. They are actually, you don't arrest the pharmaceutical companies, but you arrest these women for trespassing. They're not even on the island. Seaweed is collected a little distance from the shore. This is their life. It's just stunning the amount of work that goes into this. Another corner, and people unlike us who can have a seminar on climate change, people are trying to think up their own solutions. People are trying to say, we need to educate ourselves. So 2.5, 3 years ago, Kavita did this fantastic story on a fishing community in Pamban, in Ramanathapuram district. Now, what do you think the fisher folk did there? You have a community radio, right? You guys? The fisher folk of Pamban set up their own radio station for their community. At least one of the major reasons inspiring them was to try and understand what was happening around them. And it is the most unusual radio station anywhere. You know why, guys? The DJs walk out of the sea. They're all practicing fishermen. They walk out of the sea into the studio and are doing DJ work there. Sometimes they're reporting on their cell phone from the sea. Kadalosai, the sound of the waves, is the name of that station. And you can see older generation fishing community listening avidly to the radio. That is their station. It is discussing issues serious to them. Kavita met one of the women who participated in a discussion. It was the women who were able to tell us how many species of fish have disappeared with overfishing. That is the human activity that is causing the change. Overfishing, big trawlers, all of them. In a sea, in the waters, there are many different channels. Some fish shoals will come in some channels, some fish will come in other channels. So they were discussing how many different species of fish, and she rattled off some 20, 30 names of different fish which come in these channels. Then the question to her was, but what about those other species which you didn't mention? Her reply was, oh, those fish, you can look for them in Discovery Channel. This is the Kadalosai radio station, and they are celebrating a particular day, and all these guys are involved in that studio. The studio, the radio station, by the way, is run by a woman, Gayatri, correct. It's run by a woman, and actually some of these boys literally come back from fishing in the evening, and they are the DJs in that station. Now, another of our reporters went in Andhra Pradesh, in the Uttarakosa areas of Andhra Pradesh, and went after 2 years. His name is Rahul M. He wanted to go back to the village, and he went on the basis of the Google map, which took him to the middle of the sea waters. So that he's asking someone in the East Godavari, not Uttarakosa, sorry. And he's asking someone about a house that he had been previously to. And the chap is telling him, oh, that house, it's in the sea now, there. This had happened in 3 years. In 3 years. Damn it, that's 36 months. It's less than the time you take for your undergraduate degree. Okay, if you count exams and final exams and stuff. In that time, if your house is again there, the women and the fisher folk, the nature of their work, the drying of the nets, the marketing of the catch, the cleaning and cutting of the catch, there's a hell of a lot more to fishing than just catching the fish. Okay? That work also goes up. Now, in the Himalayas, this is the eastern Himalayas, the birds are disappearing. There is a huge decline. Yeah. Incidentally, you would not believe it, and you would find it very difficult to identify with what I'm saying. But insects play a very major role in our lives. 70% of the world's food is dependent on pollination. Yes. 70% of the world's food output comes from crops and plants dependent on pollination. Now, if those species of insects decline, your food production will fall 25 to 30% over a decade or 2 decades. Now, you know that, in fact, there are also a lot of communities for whom some insects are part of their diet. You can find it in the Madhya Pradesh market, in the Adivasi areas. Certain kinds of ants, certain kinds of insects are for sale. This is nothing to be ashamed of. It happens all over the world. The Aboriginals use a lot of insects in their diets in Australia. But all these are affected. All these are affected as the climate gets worse. Now in Arunachal, this is happening. The bird species are coming down. Oh, when bird species come down, one of the things is, there are 2 kinds of insects, okay? There are predatory pests, and there are, I love that word, scientists call them beneficial pests. Beneficial pests are those that do your pollination, that keep down the population of predator pests. Birds keep down the population of predator pests quite a bit. Now, if the birds start coming down, then it's like, by the way, if on the edges of the forest the number of snakes decline, the number of rats increase and destroy the farmer's production. That also happens. This, would you believe, it's not Barmer in Rajasthan. I did this story in 2019. This is Andhra Pradesh. We are talking about southern peninsular area. It's become a desert, 3,000 acres of desert. Why? Because of decisions on food growing. You know, who decides what crop to grow? Men. Who shapes agricultural policy? Men. Who decides that this particular seed will be used? Men. Women preserve seeds. You've had in the last few years 2 women receiving Padma Bhushans for saving, Padma Shri for receiving, for protecting traditional seed. Yeah. Now, this area, it's called Dargah Honur. It's on the edge of Anantapur district in Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. It is, strictly speaking, in the state of Andhra Pradesh. For 50-60 years ago, the fields were covered in millets, which is, by the way, what Indians largely used to eat before British rule. After that, we started eating more wheat and rice. Because they recognized wheat and rice, they were looting your country, taking your wheat and rice out of the country, exporting it, even when your people were dying in millions of famine. But the millets, we replaced in 1960 with cash crops. Millet is a food crop. That includes ragi. Do you know your state, Tamil Nadu, references to growing ragi go back in Sangam literature 2000 years ago. 2000 years ago, the people of Tamil Nadu were growing ragi, which now the government is telling you, please grow millets. It's a good thing. Your ordinary people knew that 2000 years ago. So this was another thing that happened. This was covered in millets in Andhra. Then we brought the cash crop of groundnut. We brought an external groundnut, not from that area, and put it in. We brought that external groundnut. The local species of groundnuts did not flourish. This alien species demanded much more water. And a district whose bearing capacity of 70,000 bore wells, the experts have warned, you cannot have another bore well in this district. Bearing capacity 70,000. Actual number of bore wells 3 lakh to 4 lakh. So the water has gone, rivers have dried up, and you have this desert across 2,000, 3,000 acres. There's one fun part about this desert. The fun part about this desert is that Tamil movie industry, Telugu movie industry, Kannada movie industry no longer goes to Rajasthan for the desert fight scenes. You can drive 4 hours and reach it. From Bangalore, it's 1.5 hours, 2 hours to get into the edge of Anantapur. Okay. So the desert, there have been great movies shot there. Vijay's Jayam Manade, Victory is Ours in Telugu, was shot there. All desert fight scenes, and everybody believes it's shot in Barmer so it reduces costs for your film industry, but it has devastating costs for your human beings. Just before I went there, government sent a team in a nice big SUV to study what was happening there. So the SUV with the board officers went into the desert, and the SUV got stuck, and they had to be dragged out with bullock carts and tractors. These are the bugs. You see, the trouble with bugs is they are not warm, furry creatures like dogs and cats, right? You can't hug them. You don't even dream of that you might do in your nightmares, but not otherwise. But that bug is a pollinating bug. It keeps your food supply. What is happening with climate change is that now the National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore, with whom we coordinate and work, they are telling us 40% of India's pollinating species are rapidly declining. Some of them are going extinct. Imagine the impact on your food production. These are the Bakarwals, the nomadic pastoralists of the Kashmir and Ladakh and those areas. Now, you know your Kashmir wool, where it comes from? It comes from those animals. It has to be grown, they have to be reared at a particular level. Now, people rear these kind of goats and sheep, and they rear yak. The women have to do all the clipping and cutting and saving of, and the milking and all that stuff. Now what's happened to the yak? The yak is a very unique creature. It can happily survive at minus 35 degrees. Minus 15 to 20 degrees, it dies. A plus 15 to 20 degrees, that's a yak heat wave. 15 degrees is a yak heat wave. So they die. They died in 300 of them died in 1-2 days in Sikkim 3 years ago when our reporter went there. Now, they also have tried to create solutions. They look at the fact that you and I have done, we are the problem. They are looking, ordinary people, give them that respect and dignity. They search for solutions. Yeah. So you know what these chaps are doing? The yak are dying because they can't take warmer weathers. The glaciers are melting. In the areas where they used to graze, the temperatures have hit 15, 20 in summer. So what is the answer to that? You take them higher. You take them higher. Do you know that Indian farmers, nomadic pastoralists, are using the highest grazing grounds in the world between 15,000 and 19,000 feet above sea level? Can you imagine the work that requires? Man, woman, everybody, can you imagine the work that requires? Yeah. But they're trying to look for solutions. That is your yak. Then because the yak is dying at these temperatures, they've tried another workaround. They are hybriding, breeding the yak with highland cattle to create a new animal species called zomo, which is more resilient to heat, but it is sterile. The male zomo cannot reproduce. It's only good for the wool and the meat. And that's it. For the fur and the meat. So, that was just a few examples. And you can see that in every single case, if you think about it and apply your mind, it is not hard to find the connections between climate crisis and what happens to women. Even in all the herding in the nomadic pastoralists, who's got to feed the livestock? Who's got to milk them? Who's got to do every damn thing around them? Women.